So Mark, you're up. We may have to give 5 minutes to guests, but you're on a little early, so all yours, man.
Let me just apologize for being so emotional earlier. I'm probably the worst person in this class to have to make an announcement like that. I don't do well with that. I just don't, and I apologize for that. We're going to talk about encouragement this morning. We need a little bit of that.
Yeah.
A few years ago, Debbie and I visited the Titanic Museum in Branson, Missouri. Among the exhibits is a container of cold water that is the same temperature as the Atlantic Ocean in the area where the Titanic sank. The purpose of it is to help visitors understand just how brutally cold the water was that those survivors had to endure. Now, we were each invited to place our hand in that extremely cold water. It didn't take long at all for me to pull my hand out of the water because of the intense pain that it caused. Have any of you here been there and experienced that? Anybody here? Okay, you understand. It's brutal. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it's really, really cold. Well, years ago, a fascinating experiment was conducted to measure people's capacity to endure that kind of pain. They wanted to discover how long a barefooted person could stand in a bucket of ice water. And the results were amazing. They discovered, believe it or not, that when someone else was present, offering encouragement and support, the person standing in the ice water could tolerate that pain twice as long as when no one was present. I find that amazing, and yet I really shouldn't be overly surprised. For I think we all greatly underestimate the power of encouragement. The Bible has a lot to say about this. Listen to Proverbs 12:25. Worry weighs a person down, but an encouraging word cheers a person up. One of the most mature and stable, peaceful people to ever live was the Apostle Paul. Listen to what he wrote to the church in Rome, Italy. He says, when we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith, but I also want to be encouraged by yours. And I find that interesting. Even the Apostle Paul needed encouragement. So do you, and so do I. I remember a time in my life when I desperately needed encouragement. In fact, it was so critical that when I look back on it, I realized it was a crucial turning point in my life. I was only about 14 or 15 years old. And I had this very definite awareness that God was calling me to be a pastor. That you got to understand, that was not within my plans. In fact, it was one of the farthest things from my mind. I had no desire for that. I had no intentions for that. You see, my dad was a pastor. And I saw how hard he worked and how difficult the situations were that he had to put up with. I finally got up enough nerve to tell my dad that I was sensing this call from God to be a pastor. Well, a few months later, he and my mother told me that they were going to have to go out of town and be gone for over a week, and he would like for me to preach for him on the Sunday that he was gone. I was terrified. I mean, literally. I reluctantly agreed to do it, and I worked for hours on that sermon. I estimated it'd be about 30 minutes long. You know, I didn't want to be one of those long-winded preachers. I don't care for those, but I just didn't want to be one of those, okay? And when the day came and I delivered the sermon, I was shocked that it only lasted 7 minutes. And what was worse, I realized I told them everything I knew about the Bible and then some. When I prayed that closing prayer and dismissed the congregation, something very unexpected happened. Person after person lined up in that little congregation came to me and told me what a wonderful sermon I had preached. Now, I knew, and they knew, they were lying. It was a terrible sermon, absolutely terrible. But they knew how desperately that young teenage boy needed encouragement. I suspected there were several of them who enjoyed that sermon because it was so short. But others enjoyed it because they saw a future preacher in the making. They realized he had a long way to go, but they saw that by God's grace, maybe, just maybe, that kid could become a preacher. And you know what terrifies me as I reflect on that event, and I'm serious. Those people that day could have easily destroyed me. They could have given an accurate assessment and said, that was pathetic. Or you need a lot of help. Or you need to improve immensely if you have any hope of becoming a pastor. And guess what? They'd have been telling the truth. Do you realize that there is a real sense in which they held my future in their hands? They held the fate of my life's calling with their comments. They could have destroyed me that day. Instead, they lovingly gave me encouraging words of affirmation, words of hope, words that nurtured my desire to please God. That afternoon, when I got home, a terrible thought occurred to me. What in the world will I say when I have to preach a second sermon? I just told him everything I know. I had no more sermon material. It was a terrifying thought. I went on to attend college and went on to attend seminary and pastored for 40 years before retiring. Now think of all the people that they could have affected that day if they had withheld words of encouragement to a young teenager who didn't have a clue what he was doing. Do you realize you and I have the same power? We can either encourage people or we can devastate them with unkind words. I wish I could tell you that I've always spoken words of encouragement, but the truth is I have fallen woefully short. Words are far more powerful than we often realize. Jim Green tells the story of a teacher friend of his who was assigned to teach a group of hyperactive and unresponsive third graders. They were labeled as troublemakers and underachievers, and nobody wanted them. Well, the teacher who was assigned this group opened the comment on the opening day and said to them, "I'm glad you're here, and I want you in my class. And here are 3 reasons I'm excited to be your teacher. Number 1, you're the brightest and smartest kids I've ever seen. Number 2, you are sensitive, you're caring for each other like I've never seen before. And number 3, your ability to study independently of others will be a delight for me to experience." He told them that every day. Wow. And those naive, dumb little third graders began to believe it. At the end of the year, his class of expendables rated an entire grade higher than in their testing than the other third grade classes. They turned out to be the best group of students ever to go through the third grade in that school. Why? A teacher dared to be an authentic encourager who gave them a daily dose of encouragement. Words have power, enormous power. It's been said that the way you see people is the way you treat them, and the way you treat them is the way they often become. Someone else put it this way: treat a person as he appears to be and you make them worse. But treat a person as if they already were potentially what they could be and you make them what they should be. The Apostle Paul knew the tremendous power of encouraging words. And he had these instructions for the Ephesian church. Don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. When he wrote to the church in Thessalonica, he said this: encourage each other, build each other up, just as you're already doing. So, what does the word encourage mean? It means to give courage or to give hope to someone. And the Lord knows how much we all need that. So here's my challenge to you this morning. Remember that everyone, I mean everyone that you meet needs encouragement. They need a kind, positive, affirming word from you. There is not a person in this room who could not benefit from someone encouraging them. In fact, we would be shocked if we had the time for everyone in this room to personally share the circumstances they're facing. It may be a physical crisis. It may be a financial crisis. It may be a relationship crisis, or even a spiritual crisis. But seriously, if we could know the secret burdens and fears and anxieties present in this room, we'd be shocked. Perhaps you meet people who have a smile, and they may not be expressing any concerns, but they are secretly carrying a burden. Believe me, they need your affirmation. Debbie shared a quote from an interview she heard on a webinar recently, and it was a young South African who was shadowing a Washington, D.C. pastor who was having really good success in his pastorate in reaching people. And before he returned to his home country of South Africa to begin his first pastorate, he asked the older pastor for his best advice. And this is what he told him, quote, "Whenever you teach, whenever you preach, do not forget that every person sits next to their own pool of tears." I've discovered an unexpected consequence of being an encourager. Something wonderful happens when you begin encouraging others. You know what it is? You start feeling encouraged. What you give comes back. Life looks a little brighter when you make it your goal to encourage other people. Now, I want to take just a moment here, and I'd like to hear if anybody's brave enough to share. Can you think of a time in your life when you received a word of encouragement and it made a big difference for you? Anybody willing to share that? Could be recently or it could be way back, but I'd love to hear from you. Anybody, a time that you got a word of encouragement in it? Oh, yeah, right here.
Well, when I was in elementary school, a teacher put on my report card, recommended for scholarship.
Wow.
And that impelled me to go forward and study more. And I did, in fact, get a scholarship.
Wow.
That changed my life.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Wow. Back here.
When I was taking physics in high school, I was struggling. And the teacher's name was Mr. Wagner. Mr. Wagner was a nice old gentleman and very caring, as teachers were in those days. And I went, excuse me, I went to Mr. Wagner one day for this, and I said, Mr. Wagner, I just don't get this. I just don't think I can possibly get through this fast. And he said, Sandy, between you and me and God, we'll get you through. Somehow God stepped in and I got through.
Yeah. For those of you online, that's Sandy sharing when she took physics way back and was just high school.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, high school, that she just didn't think she's gonna make it. And the teacher said between her and him and God, they're gonna make it. And he encouraged her and she did. She got through. Okay, anyone else? Time that you were just so encouraged and it made a difference. Anybody else? Look like the rest of you need some encouragement. Yeah, right. Mike?
I was drafted into the Army and had gotten in line for officer candidate school, but then I got an offer to shorten my time with the Army and go in the chemical corps and get out earlier. And I talked to my dad about it. He said, Mike, I don't know, I've always seen you as an officer. So I went ahead, went to officer candidate school, great learning for me and just a little encouragement for my dad to do that. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good, good. Anybody else? Okay. I don't want to turn this negative, but just to show the power of negative words, anybody, and I'm hesitant to do this, anybody who wants to give a time where somebody cut you down and it took a while to get over it. I'm not going to blinger here. Anybody want to share something like that? All right, we're going to move on. But, you know, we all can remember that time when somebody either put us down or said we couldn't do it or we weren't good enough. And it just hurts. And it really took a lot of effort to overcome that. Someone pointed out that,
That can also work. It-
okay,
It encourages you to do better. I
okay,
think there are times when we have to be told
okay,
that, hey, look, here's something that you can work on.
okay, okay. Someone pointed out that a word of encouragement during a failure is worth more than a whole book of praise after a success. And that's true. That's when we need it the most. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's worth repeating. Researchers have discovered that for every negative or hurtful comment a person receives, it takes 9 positive comments to offset the hurt caused by the one negative comment. We've all experienced that. We've all been there. You mean, you know, you've had those experiences where you do something and several people compliment you and encourage you, but that one person makes that negative comment. And what do you remember for the rest of the day? It's not the praise, it's not the encouragement, it's the one negative. It's just unfortunate, but that's true.
Mark,
Yes,
sorry for the interruption, but that's why there are so many negative political ads.
yes.
The very reason.
Yeah, he was saying that that's why there's so many negative political ads, because we remember them. Isn't that sad? It is so sad, but it has become, let's not be a part of that. Let's not get on that bandwagon. Don't get on Facebook and be a part of that.
Oh, here.
Yeah, we're better than that. And we need to be better than that, okay?
Mark, I think we
Yes.
see this
Oh, here.
so much in our children because our kids will come home and they've been made fun of or
Yes.
this or that or the other. And I think that's our biggest chance to give them encouragement.
Yeah,
You know, I know our son told us that he would never made it through, he played college basketball and he said that we, you know, encouraged him for 12 years. And he said it was just more than he could ever.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah, she is sharing that, for those of you online, that that's really important for our children and our grandchildren. And that her own son experienced that and their encouragement made a difference in his life. Back here, yes.
Mark, our daughter-in-law was a well-known English teacher.
Okay.
In the North Fulton area.
Okay.
And during the COVID, she she had students that remembered her forever,
Oh.
and she still keeps in touch with them. And during the COVID epidemic, she had a young doctor that was working wherever he was that texted her. She keeps in touch with all these people, saying, "Thank you for making me read the classics when I was in school with you." And he said, "You would be proud to know that every summer when I go on vacation, I take a classic book and read it on the
Wow.
So, I mean, he was thinking of her during that horrible time of COVID going on.
I would encourage any of you who know a school teacher to encourage them. I can't imagine what they're going through these days. That is a tough job. They need all the encouragement they can get. And I would encourage you to do that, seriously. They have it tough. It's really tough. And, but thank you for sharing that. Someone defined criticism this way: constructive criticism is when I criticize you. Destructive criticism is when you criticize me. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if enough of us began to daily make it our mission to encourage others so much that this class became known as the place where people encourage each other?
Oh, well.
Yeah. But people start saying, you know, those people in that class, they care about each other. And then they'll say, I want to hang out with those people. Okay? I love that. Okay. There's a man in the New Testament whose name was Joseph. Now, it's not the Joseph who married to Mary, the mother of Jesus, but another man named Joseph. And I love what Luke says about him. He says, there was Joseph, the one the apostles nicknamed Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. He was from the tribe of Levi and came from the island of Cyprus. He sold a field and brought the money to the apostles. And this is when it sold the field and truly brought the money and gave it to them. Well, wouldn't it be great if we became such great encouragers in this class that we were given the nickname the encouragers? We had a Sunday school class in one of the churches I pastored called the encouragers class. Unfortunately, they had to be reminded by me from time to time that they didn't live up to the name. Some of you would not have liked me as your pastor. Oh, man. Oh, well. Anyway, so here's the question. Who needs your encouragement today? Never forget that the most important kind of encouragement is that which calls a person to remember how much Jesus has done for them. That's where we are sorely lacking today, in encouraging people in their relationship with Jesus Christ. And we need to do better in that area, all of us. We need to remind people how Jesus has gone through so much to rescue them from the prison of guilt and shame and destruction. So be one who encourages others to stand firm in their faith. Encourage those who are struggling to dare to obey God, even in those difficult times. So let's start a trend that is radically different from so many other trends. Let's become a community of encouragers. Let me give you two personal examples of how words of encouragement have been so important to me, okay? The first is an example of how words of encouragement from my wife have made a huge difference for me. When Debbie and I married, and some of you don't know this about me, it's why I was so emotional early this morning. I lost my first wife to cancer when I was just in my early 30s. And then, of course, we lost our daughter also. So that's why I get so emotional when I have to make these kind of announcements. So that just please be patient with me. Anyway, I'm on a detour here. Anyway, when we got married, I was already a pastor, okay? And she had been a college professor And of all things, she taught speech classes. Can I just be brutally honest with you? I wasn't particularly excited to have her critique my sermons. I'm not real smart, but I'm smart enough to know that I'm not going to win any awards in a speech class. Okay? You have no idea how much it means to me when Debbie gives me a word of encouragement following a sermon or a lesson that I have taught. Now, I know that she could tear my techniques or lack of techniques apart. She could nitpick my delivery and be very accurate. But she knows the power and the destructiveness of put downs. You know, I care what you think. I really do. But I care a lot more what she thinks. Now, I use that illustration to make this point, and listen carefully. Your spouse, your family is no different. They desperately need your affirmation and your words of encouragement. Other people's words are important to them. But your spouse, your children, your grandchildren need your words of encouragement more than anyone else's. And they're powerful. They're powerful. The second example I give is personal for me. It dawned on me recently as I look back on my 40 years as a pastor from the perspective of retirement. It's been really humbling to realize that all of those hundreds and hundreds of sermons I preached are not what people remember about me. I mean, over the span of 40 years, I spent literally thousands of hours preparing sermons and lessons and devotionals. And I don't regret any of that. I'm glad I did. But here's what I find really enlightening and humbling. I get letters and notes and phone calls from people I had the privilege of being their pastor. And guess what? They don't ever talk to me about those wonderful sermons. I mean, I spent a lot of time on those sermons. They don't talk about that. You know what they talk about? A time that I spoke a word of encouragement, or a time I expressed appreciation, or a time that I acknowledged them doing something, whether it was important or not, some accomplishment. Or they refer to a time I showed up at the hospital or put my arm around them and prayed with them. Or when I listened to them pour out their heart when circumstances were just overwhelming them. That's what they remember. And here's the good news in all of that. You don't have to write impressive sermons or teach wonderful lessons to be a powerful, powerful influence on people. Your compassion and words of encouragement will mean far more than any impressive sermon or lesson someone might deliver. You can make an enormous difference in people's lives. I wish I knew how to communicate that this morning. You can make a difference. All of you. So I want to take a moment here and pick your brain for a moment. What are some positive ways that we could do that? Some of you are creative and you're thinking, how can we find ways to encourage people? Hey, let me hear from you. What are some ways that might be used to encourage people? Help me out here. What are some ways? Yes, over here.
I text my grandchildren just a short 3 or 4 words. Just when I think about them, I text them.
Good for you.
And it's usually an encouragement. You know,
Absolutely.
somebody's thinking.
Thank you. Yeah. Someone else.
I do the same thing.
You do the same thing? Okay, right here in the front.
I think stopping to talk to people in the store that work in the store.
Yeah.
I learned that from Marty Fortney, who some people may remember. She would always stop and talk to somebody at Walmart and just give them her ear. And they appreciate that. being recognized.
Yeah. Carol and I have an older sister like that, and used to bug me to death. Go to the grocery store, I couldn't get out because of her stopping and talking to everybody and encouraging them, she just had that gift. And, I was like, what are you doing? And I'm embarrassed, and I realized she's actually encouraging these people. She's actually being a blessing to them. Yeah. Yeah, right here.
I tell people, when you get in an elevator, you have a golden opportunity, because there are two rules in America.
Yeah,
When you walk into an elevator, quiet.
okay.
When you're in the elevator, face front. So what I do when I get in an elevator is I say, good morning, good afternoon, hello, hope you have a great day. Okay, now everybody turn around. You are in charge.
Okay,
I do that a lot.
okay. Someone else, right here.
Just taking the time to thank people every day for when they do something, anything, but thanking people.
Yeah. I would say especially do that when you come across custodians. I mean, think about their job and yeah.
Even Mike out front. When you
Oh,
come
yeah.
in on Sunday morning,
Absolutely.
say hi to Mike.
Right.
I do that in Walmart when I come through there, the ladies are refolding the clothes and everything, and I say, thank you for your job. Because they fold and refold. And
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
Costco and Walmart.
Yeah,
and all
good.
that stuff.
Back over here.
We have an unusual situation in our family that one of our grandsons, one of the twins, is in the Peace Corps, and he is stationed in Mongolia. And every Sunday or every Saturday evening, the whole family gets on there on like a Zoom
Right,
call with
right.
him. And I stop and think about, sometimes we're the only English-speaking people, not only we're his family too.
Yeah,
That's the only connection
Sure.
that he has
sure.
for the whole week,
Yeah, that's good.
It's been a hard
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
this year.
Good. Yes, over here. Yeah.
I am concerned about the negativity towards police officers
Yes.
that this country is experiencing.
Right. Yeah.
They don't deserve it. It's a tough job.
Yeah.
They're underpaid, they're overworked. If you see a policeman, say something nice.
Yeah.
Something encouraging.
Sure, sure. Okay, right here. Ann?
Well, this is a simple thing, but we have a teenage grandson that stays with us during the week that for some reason his jeans always ripped to the front when he's doing work, whatever. He brought them and he said, do you think you could fix this? Which is a hard thing. It's in the crotch. What teenage boy wants to ask Nana to mess with his pants in that area? Anyway, but I began mending them, and then his younger brother now has brought me something and said, Jack said you mended his stuff. 4 or 5 pairs of jeans. My husband, I don't know where he is. He even had to sacrifice a pair of jeans so that I could get the fabric from them to have enough stuff. Anyway, but it's an encouragement. It's
That's
a fun thing.
Yeah.
Our daughter-in-law, we had a birthday for Dave. Our daughter-in-law brings custard pies every time we get together for any celebration, because she knows everybody loves them. And she told me how much it means to
Right,
her
right.
that we burden her with bringing custard pies, because she loves to do it. And it's an encouragement to her.
Good. Yeah.
Real quickly, thanks to Beverly Tatum and the Lanhams for the work they do every Sunday for folks and visitors. And thank you to Sue Waite for the wonderful job you
Yes.
do with the weekly.
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Yeah.
Never write a check to someone. I always write thank you on the memo line.
Yeah, sure, sure. Good, good. Anybody, right here, John?
We all have an opportunity this morning, as we leave this room, anybody that you see in the hallway or walking down as we all go to worship, as you walk down, just speak to people. You'll be amazed at the people that you may be the only one that speaks to them
Sure.
at that time.
Sure.
It's a real opportunity, just as you're saying, you greet people.
Good, good.
Smile goes a long way.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else before we? Yes, back here, Roger.
A major item in our budget is to the United States Post Office
Yeah.
for stamps, for Gail to write cards.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many comments we get.
Right.
on that.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes,
I have one more. It was mentioned, Lanham's and Beverly and Sue. And Roger made me think about Patsy Lanham also, in case you don't know it, for cares and concerns. She is the one who writes the note, and it says from CUC. I hope she gets thank yous for that. I get thank yous for that, and I have nothing to do with the writing. She does. If you get a note, it is from her, and she is excellent at doing that. And so she deserves a big round of applause for doing that too.
okay, I'm gonna offer a challenge to you. A few weeks ago, I shared this lesson with the Crosstalk Sunday School class. That's the class right down the hall here on the other side, okay? I had a lady in that class share with me that she got so pumped up about the possibilities of being an encourager. She, in the following week, contacted 30 people with messages of encouragement by email, letters, and text. I don't expect anybody here to beat her. But what if all of us decided we're going to do that for 3 or 4 people? We're going to find 3 or 4 people that could use our encouragement, and we're going to encourage them this week. Is that a deal? Let's do that, okay? I conclude with 2 scriptures, and I just want to say when the class is over, I'm not going to hang around. It's not because I'm mad. I'm having to help with communion this morning. I've got to get on over there. Okay, so I'm not being rude when I leave, okay? Here's the first scripture, and I find this one convicting. If I was arrested on false charges and put in prison, I think I'd definitely be requesting prayer, okay? And I think the prayer request would be something like, well, pray that I get released soon, okay? Well, when Paul writes a letter to the church in Ephesus, he's in prison. And sure enough, he's not under very just causes. And he makes a prayer request. Listen to it. He says, pray for me too. Ask God to give me the right words so that I can boldly explain God's mysterious plan that the good news is for the Jews and Gentiles alike. I am in chains now, still preaching this message as God's ambassador. So pray that I will keep on speaking boldly for him as I should. He says to bring you up to date, Tychus will give you a full report about what I'm doing and how I'm getting along. He's a beloved brother and a faithful helper in the Lord's work. Now I've sent him to you for this very purpose, to let you know how we're doing and to encourage you. Could I write that if I was in prison? Would I be worried about encouraging the church, the Sunday school class, if I was in prison? Wow. And earlier, we read these words that Paul wrote to the church in Thessalonica, and I close with this morning. Encourage each other. Build each other up, just as you already are doing. Let's do it, okay? Blessings on you.
Amen.
Thank you, Mark. So before we conclude, in the spirit of his talk, I would like to hear 3 comments from our group on his talk. Debbie, you don't have to go first if you don't. Anyway, these are any thoughts back to Mark for his talk? I'm looking for 3. Yes, Rose.
I thought it was very encouraging.
Very encouraging. Okay, very encouraging. Yes.
Start texting some people that I think need encouragement.
Okay, encourage Larry to start texting people who need encouragement.
Great.
Jeff.
I want to encourage him to continue.
Yeah. Amen.
Okay, anybody else have one? That's 3. Yes, Roger.
Teach that lesson to every class in the church.
Are you saying we all need to hear that? Is that- Yeah.
All the classes.
Okay, all the classes. Okay. What you? Who did? Okay.
Words are powerful, and that is a life-changing message that you gave us. So thank you.
Wow. Nice comments. Yeah, I agree. But as I was sitting here, I was looking over and there was Charlotte Dotson, and I just remember and think of Malone as one of the great encouragers of all time, how positive he made us feel and recognize, just the most wonderful encourager.
Did the missionaries ever show up?
I don't think the missionaries showed up. Jeff, did you want to come up and share? They were supposed to be here at 10, so I don't know if they got adjourned till 10:45, but I think they're not going to be here this morning. So, Ann, or they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Lynn.
Something must have happened.
Okay. Okay. Have a great week, and we will see you. Bye, Mark. Your communion. Hey,
Come back next week.
we should say something encouraging about the work you're going to do in communion, not like don't drop the plate or something like that.
Show up at church.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good week, guys. See you next week.
That got a real discussion going.
Sure.